Osio Nagada, Anagali Duncan, Gimme allergies to Dagi Dundo, the Gagigage, Nigadu no G or Jathanatli, Stiliwal our Tersa, or Seno, Stanford Utanjun Death Costigadesco. I begin my talk by introducing myself in the Cherokee language as an invitation for my ancestors to enter the space with us. Because when I stand before you today, I do not stand alone, but I stand as the son of Kim and Carney Duncan. I stand as a brother to 13 siblings. I stand with the community of Stillwell, Oklahoma, and the rest of the Cherokee people, a citizenship and identity that I have inherited through both sides of my parents, through story, through language, and through survival. Inheritance is something we can all understand. You might inherit your mother's eyes or your grandfather's height. But what does it mean to inherit something you cannot see? What does it mean to inherit the lived realities of your ancestors, to carry the weight of trauma that was never yours to choose? For Indigenous people, and for my community, this is not an abstract idea, but it is something we live with every day. I grew up in Stillwell, Oklahoma. This is the end point of the Cherokee Trail of Tears, or what my community calls the Geji Ilasana, when we were herded like animals. This event did not just happen and end, but it reshaped the rest of our lives. If you grew up in the United States, you might have heard a little bit about the Trail of Tears, maybe a chapter, maybe a paragraph. For me, I remember opening up my state-issued history book and seeing our story condensed to 2 to 3 pages. 2 to 3 pages to tell the story of a nation removed. 2 to 3 pages to account for thousands of lives lost. So let me tell it differently. Since time immemorial, the Cherokee people have lived in the southern reaches of the Appalachian Mountains, lands that are currently referred to today as Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Alabama. Here, we cultivated land, we built governments, we created our own writing system, and we adapted strategically to European colonization and the ever-expanding United States. We also fought for our rights that we knew to be true, and that was that we were sovereign nations, not subject to any single law of any single state. But with the hunger for land increasing and violence escalating, our legal victories eventually started to become ignored. And in 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act into law. This basically gave the United States the authority to remove southeastern tribes to Indian Territory, or present-day Oklahoma. Still yet, the Cherokee people resisted. We sent leaders to Congress. We petitioned, gathering thousands of signatures to fight for our right to stay on our homeland. But in 1835, a small, unauthorized group signed the Treaty of New Echota. This single document was the justification the United States needed to remove us out west. So in 1838 and 1839, the United States government rounded up over 19,000 Cherokee men, women, and children, gathered us into internment camps, keeping us there for weeks or months at a time, and then forcibly removing us at gunpoint to the west. On this journey, 1/4 of our population died from starvation, overexposure, and from the brutality of one of the coldest winters at that time. So what does it mean to come from a community that has this history? For our community, it looks like this. Stillwell, Oklahoma sits in one of the poorest districts in the state of Oklahoma. In 2018, the Washington Post declared Stillwell the early death capital of the world, with a life expectancy of 56.3 years old, an age that currently makes me middle-aged. These numbers are not random, but they are tied to the everlasting impacts of settler colonialism and manifest today through things such as gun violence, suicide, and substance abuse, all issues that affect many Native communities across the nation. For much of my childhood, I was embarrassed to say where I came from. I would think of the history of strong Cherokee people advocating for our rights, and I'd look around my community, and I wouldn't see it reflected. But this is what led me to realize I must look to the past, and I must unearth what was left on that trail. Today, I offer you this. In order to move past painful histories, we cannot face away from them, but we must face them head on. Today, I want to take you on a journey with me as I retraced my ancestors' footsteps, not by a wagon, not by foot, but on a bicycle, as I retraced the Trail of Tears over 950 miles. This journey taught me 3 lessons. The first, about inner strength. The second, about communal healing. And the third, about perspective. These are not just lessons from a bike ride, but they are lessons about how to move past painful histories together. The first story I want to take you guys to is Cumberland Mountain. Anyone who has participated in the Remember the Removal bike ride knows about this mountain. It is the one we whisper about months even before starting our journey. It is the tallest, steepest, longest mountain we will face on this journey. I remember our support staff telling us that it's too dangerous to stop unless absolutely necessary, to keep moving forward if you can. So as me and my team of 8 other Cherokee individuals began our climb, rain soaked through our clothes, and as we got higher and higher, the air got thinner and thinner, and each of us began to space out, going at our own pace against the grade of the mountain. There was a moment in this ride where it was just me, my uncle Ronnie Duncan, and my friend Raylan Bark. About an hour or an hour and a half left of our ride. Then in a split second, there was a crash between the 2 of them. And the last thing I heard was my uncle say, "Go, Anagali, go, do not stop." And in that moment, I realized I had to finish this mountain alone. Oftentimes, our communities are confined to statistics written by people who have never lived where we lived. When you are told from a young age that Native people make up less than 1% of higher education, you begin to see that number as a ceiling or a prediction of what you are capable of doing. And for me, that ceiling felt real. I am descended from greatness. This is the sentence that ran through my head as I simultaneously gasped for oxygen, and as lactic acid ran through my legs. And as that feeling of loneliness started to creep in, I kept reminding myself, I am descended from greatness. On that mountain, I learned something. Although I was alone on that mountain, I was not the first Cherokee person to cross these mountains. But I am descended from people who did it without a bike, without gears, and without choice. And because of that, I am strong. As I reached the summit, tears were flowing down my face, and I kept repeating out loud, I am descended from greatness. As I reached the top, I fell to my knees in relief, but also in realization that because of who I come from, I do not have to accept anything, any statistic that the world tries to make me accept. The next story I want to take you to is Port Royal. This is a preserved area of the Trail of Tears. But before I get into this story, I want to share a word with you. In the Cherokee language, we say, "Dejada se esti." This literally means to cling to one another. This is not just a word for us, but it is a value. It is a way of life. As a Cherokee, I cling to those around me to lift them up when they can't lift themselves. And I assume that when I falter, they will do the same in return. So like I said, Port Royal is a preserved area of the Trail of Tears. That morning, me and my team crossed the Mississippi River by boat. This area was the deadliest area on the Trail of Tears. And you could feel it in the air. You can see it in the land that hadn't seen a Cherokee person or heard the Cherokee language in over 200 years. This was a turning point for me and my team. As we gave tobacco to the ancestors who did not survive this place, and as tears flowed down our faces, we clinged to each other's hands, and we started to sing, "Uwo duha de Sa," beautiful home. Being removed from our homelands did not end our story, but it showed us that home isn't just a place. Home is the people you surround yourself with. Home is the people that lift you up when you cannot lift yourself. Healing from intergenerational trauma is not an individual act, but it is something you must do hand in hand, voice to voice, heart to heart, with community. The next story I want to take you to is actually the final day of the bike ride. The night before, me and my team camped out at a place called Rocky Mountain. That morning was calm. It was serene. You could see the sun rising. You could hear birds chirping. You could smell the petrichor rising from the grass. It was a morning that invited reflection on the journey we just conquered. Every morning before we began our ride, me and my team did a war call to announce our presence to our ancestors, to ask them to follow us home. But that morning, our war call felt different. As our echo rolled through the hills of the Ozarks where I grew up, it sounded as if thousands of other Cherokee voices answered us in the echo. As me and my team began riding into Tahlequah, Oklahoma, the capital of the Cherokee Nation, I began to see faces of people I hadn't seen in nearly a month. I began to see the patterns of rivers I grew up alongside. And I realized I see it with a different perspective. Oftentimes, we are told to confine our communities by its losses, by what's absent. But today, I choose to see what we have. We have the survival of 3/4 of our community who survived attempted genocide and removal. We have an unbroken line of language, culture, and community, and because of that, we are strong. We may have inherited intergenerational trauma, but we also inherited intergenerational strength. Yes, we have scars, but we also have armor. From this moment, I realized this bike ride could not be a finish line for me, but it had to be a catalyst for all that I do in the future. My advocacy for my community in academic spaces, my speaking at national and international convenings on tribal rights, my founding of a nonprofit with my father's 7 ravens, are all my efforts into taking the intergenerational strength that I have inherited and to make tangible change for the future of my community. So I want to leave you guys with this. Statistics are not cages, but they are signals at what needs tending to. Healing from intergenerational trauma is not an individual act, but it is something we must do together. We must know our history, but we are not confined to it. Yes, we might have inherited scars, but we also have inherited armor. So now I'm going to ask you all to participate in this with me. I ask that you all close your eyes. I ask that you bring in someone who you think of when I say an ancestor, someone who taught you something. I ask that you bring them into the space with you. I ask that you bring them into every space you enter. And as you open your eyes, and I look around, and I see you guys, I cannot think of any other truth but this: we are descended from greatness. Wado, thank you.